The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So once again, welcome to the Ask the Experts webinar. We are back live. Well, it could be live if you're actually listening right now, but as always, we'll record this and put it on the YouTube, First Canada YouTube channel, the playlist for Ask the Expert webinars. I will say the last couple of weeks we've done them as sort of podcasts. Actually, last week we didn't because I was sick in bed. As Monique said, she thinks I had the first robotics flu, the FRC flu. I hope that wasn't it. But in any case, during the build season, it's tough for people to listen, so that's why we definitely want to record them. Today, we're going to, again, try to do it live. And right before we started today, like in the past live ones I tried to do, my internet went out. So I'm watching it carefully on the router on the wall to make sure that it's still flashing for me, but so far so good. As always, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll get to them as we go along. Feel free to ask any questions you want. And again, this is about week one, the first Power Up district events in Ontario. And we're going to get started. So today we have a guest with us, Monique Pouquet, from the last year's Rookie All-Star team in Ontario and one of the divisions at the World Championships in St. Louis, Team Sabotage 6331. And she's going to talk to us, and she's going to chime in as we go along, but I'm going to just go through a couple of reminders first. Number one, make sure you print your team roster. Some of you may say, well, everybody's filled out a form, but you still must print your team roster from your dashboard. Those names, if they're on that, if they're not done online, they have to be added in on the bottom of your roster, and you have to hand in their completed consent and permission forms at each of your events. So the two district events, and hopefully at the district championship, and then hopefully again at the world championships. Don't forget to bring your robot lockup form. Teams do forget that, so give that job to somebody else. Typically, a lot of teams will have a binder that they have their key stuff in, and they will make multiple copies of it so that a mentor has it, and maybe the key person on the team that helps the mentor will also have it, and hopefully you can also have a student you can trust it to. Don't forget to bring some tools. Hopefully you know which ones that you've been using all season to build your robot, and you can do that. And we'll talk a little bit about scouting, but also make sure that your team is aware that they're going to need to scout. Even rookie teams just think, I don't need to scout. That's not true. You would be surprised at how tense it gets when you're a rookie team and you're like in 12th or 13th spot, and you might end up being a picker. It happens a lot. So please make some plans for that. So week one, we have two events in Ontario, two district events, one at Durham College in Oshawa and one at Georgian College in Barrie. And Monique, you're going with your team to Barrie, I believe.
That's right. We're going to be in Barrie this year.
So as all for the first time, it's a nice spot. Barrie's a really nice spot, and there won't be much snow this year, and this time of year there could be lots. So to get the snow, you might have to go further north than Barrie. We also would like to mention that teams should tell as many people as they know. You have to know somebody in Oshawa and you have to know somebody in Barrie. That's just the way it works in Ontario. And tell them to come to the event. All first events are free for spectators to come, and they will definitely enjoy it. For those of you on rookie teams that have never seen this live, you're not going to believe it. It's just going to be incredible. And of course, all the events are streamed online. There's several platforms, but the most common one is Watch First Now. So you can search Watch First Now on the internet and you can find that. You can go on various other things like Twitch and so forth that do have some of them as well. And you need to assign someone on your team to report on how you're doing. Take pictures, send video, live tweet, live stream, whatever you want it to do if you can. Just keep in mind that there are some rules and regulations in terms of creating Wi-Fi hotspots and so forth, as in don't do that. So if you're not sure, talk to somebody at the venue and they can tell you where and when you can do that kind of thing and what's allowed. And if you are competing and you're thinking, well, maybe I want to be on the Ask the Expert webinar next week to talk about what happened, especially if your team wins, someone's going to win. Could be you. Hopefully it is. And you might want to come and talk about it as well. So without further ado, we're going to talk to Monique, who is the lead mentor of FRC Team 6331, Team Sabotage. It's a French-speaking school, I believe, Monique. Oui?
Yes, it is. Oui, certainement.
And your team was a rookie all-star in Ontario at the district event, but you must have been rookie all-star at least one
We
other.
were Waterloo event.
Which is a tough event. And then also in St. Louis. What was the divisions that you were rookie all-star of? Do you remember? Or is that?
We were in, geez, now that's terrible. I can't think.
That's okay.
Curry, I think.
Curry. We could check it out.
They put two divisions together to give us the rookie all-star.
That's right. So
yeah.
That's even more impressive. And now you're a second-year team, and so you're going to tell us something about your team's preparation and what's going on. And not that you have to answer all of these questions or any of these questions, but these are some of the things that we had mentioned that might be some things that teams would like to hear about from last year. So we'll chit-chat as we go back and forth, but maybe you can start with at least that first one. How different is going into your first event this year from going into your first event last year?
I would like to say it was less exhausting, but it was probably more so. We worked longer hours this year because we really tried to concentrate on the robot this year. So it was crazy late nights that maybe we even overdid and could have relaxed a little bit on, because I think after midnight, you don't know what you're doing anymore anyway. So that was different. But we had a lot of good ideas that we rejected, a lot of prototypes that we rejected, and then of course the one thing we did this year was build a much heavier robot, which was a good idea in the beginning, because we said last year we had a 70-pound weakling. This year we said we got to use the full weight, but sadly when we raised the robot it was overweight.
How much was it overweight? Do you remember?
15 pounds, yeah.
Well, that's a lot.
That's a lot. So there's no amount of holes that you can drill to take that off. So we really had to rethink again. So that's been fun, and that's been a whole new learning experience for us. But preparing for our event, it's a lot easier. We now have checklists in place, and so that's one thing that I encourage teams to do is get your checklists ready, get a robot checklist ready for the kids. A lot of the mistakes that we made in the pits last year or in the competitions were things that the kids, silly things like grabbing the same battery that they had just taken off the robot and throwing it back on and having it die in the field. So they did things like that. So they learned to rotate their batteries and make sure they marked them and the ones they used, and make sure they changed their battery, as opposed to forgetting, if you have something on your robot that you have to reset, remember to reset it. So that was on our checklist because they forgot to do that too last year, and we ended up not being able to climb at one of our matches because they just didn't reset the climber. So little things like that make a big difference in your overall play.
Did you assign someone whose job is just batteries at an event?
We did not. The pit crew pretty much manages it, and because you do have enough time between sessions, I think if they just go over the checklist one by one, everything they do, that worked really well for us. But I suppose if you had that many batteries, you probably could. We didn't have so many that we could just rotate them out that way.
So how many do you have?
And then we bought all fresh. Last year we had 6. This year we bought 8 fresh ones because we don't want to use any of the ones from last year in competition.
And that's good for teams to know, like the other rookie teams this year, that you need batteries. And if you don't have that many batteries, you might know a team nearby that's not competing at your event and maybe willing to lend them to you. That might be useful. So So you're talking about some of the things that you learned at the events last year and that you were going to implement. So are there any others that you haven't mentioned yet?
Yeah, we're doing our bill of materials, of course, which everybody should be doing, making sure they've got that. We've got our safety documentation. We're getting ready, doing that sort of thing. Printing up the rosters. This year, we're printing up all our rosters at once and duplicate for all our events because we lost a set last year. We tape everything to the bag now for our robot. Including our tags, because we ended up at an event where we had our tags go into another truck, and when we got there, we didn't have our bag and our tags. So we did any mistake that a rookie team could make, pretty much, we did last year. So, but it was good learning experiences. We learned more from our mistakes than we do from our successes, I think. And as any team, we learned a lot every time. We just kept adjusting. So that was fun.
So nothing catastrophic then last year that you didn't come back from?
No, and everything was just, oh, well, what did we learn from that? And that's what we were able to do. And that's one of the things, like when you have mentioned what help we got from teams. So we were so shy at the beginning last year at the Waterloo event. We had no autonomous mode for our first four matches, and the kids were they just thought nobody would help them. So finally, we got up the nerve to go ask another team, and they sent someone out and created us an autonomous mode in like 5 seconds flat. And and it was funny because they just were so afraid that was going to be some sort of trade secret that nobody would share with them. So definitely don't be afraid to ask the other teams for help. There's a lot of good programmers out there, a lot of great kids who will help your team, especially if they're going to be competing with you. They want you to succeed.
So I guess that's one of the things that they were worried about last year, that nobody would talk to them and nobody would help them. Is there other things that you and the team maybe thought that in hindsight that weren't important this year?
Well, like one of the things they worried about was, looking like rookies. When you go to an event where you see these incredible teams that have been established for 16 years, you can't help but be in awe of the machines that they create and the presentation. Even their pit is polished, and we had our tent, which we felt pretty good about right up until we got to the event, and we still have our tent this year because we didn't figure out how to find the time to rebuild our own special pit. We couldn't agree on an arrangement, so I said we're just taking the tent again, and it's fast and easy at least. But it's all things that you never want your team to feel that they shouldn't try to compare themselves to those established teams, because that's a fine-tuned machine that's been in action for so many years, and they've got to be feeling good about what they've done, and that's the important thing. And so they were.
I think some of the sorry, we have to work on our communication skills here. But what I was going to say was, I think some of the rookie teams that would be listening would be thinking, you were so successful as winning the Rookie All-Star at several competitions, and yet you're talking about all these problems that you have. So how did you manage to stay positive through all of the problems to actually be the Rookie All-Star?
Well, that's a funny question, because when I was looking at your last question that you've got on the list, it says, what do you think got you over the top? And I knew I had great students. That was the kids do it all, because we stand there in the background and we just hope that they don't choke or panic, because we know they know all the answers. And I think any team could be the Rookie All-Star, or could win the Judges Award, or could win whatever. There's a lot of great teams out there. It's how you're able to get across what it is that you do, and that's very important. It's the whole marketing aspect of, making sure the kids are comfortable sharing what they've done, but their attitude. My team has an amazing attitude, a real positive energy. And so again, at the Waterloo event, our first event, we were really bad, we improved from really bad to slightly better at our next event. But when you don't move and have an autonomous mode and you forget to put your battery in and your robot dies or doesn't climb, you end up at the bottom of the ratings. And so we were in last place for almost the entire event. And so our motto got to be, we can only get better from here. So that was just, when you're at the bottom, you can only go up. And that's their motto. And they were okay with that. Like, they started making a joke out of it. It got to be fun. And it's, you know, if they moved up 1 point, it was great. And so I think their positive energy really shined through with the judges, that it wasn't all about the robot. Because if they're not embracing the whole experience of FIRST, they're missing out. If it's just going and building a robot, they're really missing out on what this is about.
So it sounds like your team played to its strengths. The strength wasn't
they had to.
The actual robot.
That's right. It wasn't. I'm hoping it's a little bit stronger this year. We're feeling better about it, but we'll see. But yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So you are, I know you yourself did some stuff in the summer to improve your skills. What was that? What was that all about?
Yeah. So my background is I'm a teacher, but I am a hairstyling teacher and cooking teacher. So I actually went and took a manufacturing course so that we could actually work in our shop, because last year we built our robot we started in the kitchen and we ended up in the library because we needed more space. So this year we are actually in the shop class. It's beautiful. It's got tools and tables that are metal. We can actually cut metal on without them shaking all over the place. So it's it's a big upgrade for our team this year.
So
it's going
how did you find out about this this manufacturing course?
This manufacturing course is offered by Mr. John Hobbins, although there are more, but it was actually offered for teachers on the OCTI website. And it was also mentioned by one of the other mentors for another team. So there were so many people recommending it. When I looked into it, I didn't know who the teacher was in the beginning, but it was certainly an excellent experience, and I learned a lot.
So for those of you who don't know Mr. Hobbins, John Hobbins is the regional director for FRC in Ontario, and he did start the teams at 1241 at Rick Hansen before he took the job with FIRST Canada. So very knowledgeable, and had lots of good resources to call upon there at that, I guess it was an initial qualification course, as teachers call them, AQ courses. So sometimes, and I was a teacher, so I can say this, the AQ courses are not so useful. This one sounds like it was exactly what was called for. So you obviously feel like you're better prepared to build an outstanding.
Yes, I'm much better prepared. At the very least, we are able to have access to tools, and when I look at them, I actually have a little bit more confidence in showing the students what they can do. I mean, my team still has to do a lot more on their own probably than than some other teams, but we've been lucky to have some mentors come out this year. So that's been a real blessing this year as well.
So has the team grown because of it's a second-year team and the success that you had in your first year?
The core group stayed the same. We had a lot of grade 12 students, a lot of older students joined the team this year. So it's going to grow and then shrink, but I'm sure there's to be some new grade 9s coming in. They've already got a whole new batch that are interested in joining the team. And actually, we hosted one of our initiatives this year was to host a STEM fair, or as we call it, a STEM fair because it's in French. And the kids were real excited about coming in and seeing the robot and thinking that they want to join the team when they come to the school. So yeah.
So you're feeling good about this week then?
Well, we are feeling more positive than we were after we raid the robot. There's no doubt about that. But unfortunately, we didn't get as much practice in as we'd hoped, or almost any practice with the new components. So we're going to be on the field Friday night. Well, we can get on there.
One thing I did want to mention was, in terms of exactly what you just said, is that last year being our first year in the districts and the whole airship and all the electronics that were involved last year being very, very time consuming to put together. There were several district events where that Friday night, or the first night, which was either the Thursday or Friday, there was very little practice time at some events. Some events had lots, and some events had very little. So we think this year that there will be practice. We're pretty certain there will be practice after 5 o'clock at every event on that day zero. Technically, it's called day zero. So it's a 3 to 5 load in for teams, and then at 5 p.m. the pits will reopen, and there'll be time to work on your robot and to practice on the field. So that should help. Well, it should help everybody.
Yeah.
I know that I was
That'd
at
be great.
a couple of the practice fields in the Toronto area, in Toronto, Mississauga, at John Polani School in North York, and then at Studica, Mississauga. And there were a lot of teams there, and a lot of rookie teams, and they looked pretty good. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they do when the actual games start. But it should be exciting, that's for sure. But if you are a rookie team, Monique and I have some tips about don't be that team. So one of the things, and you don't have to build one, but you can certainly find something, because there is some distance. Durham, for example, there's a little bit of distance to get from your pit to the field, and really it's not a safe thing for 2 or 3 kids to try to carry the robot that far. Georgian, it's just behind the curtain, so you just go around a corner and you're there, so it's not too bad. But it's still not safe to carry it that distance. You can find something to wheel it into the event venue. So that's something that's important. You guys have a wagon or a cart of some kind, yes?
Yeah, we have a cart that we picked up at Princess Auto. The kids aren't admiring it. They admired everybody else's, wanted to redesign it. But we have, I'm not letting the cat out of the bag by saying we have a really high robot this year. And so the low cart is perfectly suited to our robot. So it stayed as it was.
Yeah, and it's I guess a point that should be made is that there's cables all over the place. And to make it safe, there are cable mats where they sort of acts as a little ramp for your robot. So you want to be careful that when you're going over those things, that at least one person is holding on it. Sometimes the robots were shifting because the cart's wheels were too small, and they were getting stuck on the mat. So you want to be careful about that. One of the others of don't be that team. Don't be the team whose drive team doesn't know the rules and costs their alliance a match. So it's one thing for your robot not to perform well. It's one thing for you not to have a lot of driving practice and be getting better as you go along, as teams will. Obviously, you'll be surprised at how much better they get. But there's no reason why your team shouldn't know the rules. And if you're not sure, you need to ask somebody. For example, we were at an event in Calgary, the team I was with in 2013, and we were shooting frisbees, and there was a climb at the end that you had to climb, sort of a pyramid made out of jungle gym kind of piping. And one of the key rules that we used was if your robot was touching the pyramid, you couldn't be bumped by another robot. So we set up ours so that it would shoot, it would touch the low rung and then just shoot from there, and it was deadly accurate. But even into the second day, there were teams in Calgary just slamming into us, which was a complete violation of the rules, and they were getting all sorts of penalties because they didn't know the rule. And not only that, but they hadn't asked because they were doing this in multiple games. So obviously they didn't know what their penalties were for. So it's a good thing to make sure you know the rules. You don't want to try to explain to your alliance partners that, oh, we didn't read that stuff. Isn't it easy to know? Well, it's not. There are lots of rules. So you want to keep an idea on that one. Just other kinds of things. We have teams that are forgetting their buttons, and it's not just rookie teams. Teams forget their drive buttons back at the hotel, and sometimes the hotels are not next door, and that can be problematic. Everybody going into the pits should have safety glasses on, not be carrying them, not going to get them from the pit. So make sure that you have them with you. Each person should be responsible for their own safety glasses. Your team has to have their own, which I'm sure they've been using to build their robot, because that's the only way to be safe. And as Monique mentioned much earlier in the webinar, very often teams are afraid to ask other teams for help. But we know that is the wrong attitude, right, Monique?
That is the wrong attitude. You got to ask, and it's if you have to do it as a mentor, it's fine, but it's better if the kids can do it.
Yeah. They want to do the networking. They want to make those relationships with kids they're going to see in university classes and kids are going to see later in the season, because a lot of teams tend to go to the same events, and certainly they'll see some of those same people at the district championship. And you want to make sure that other people know who you are, so that if you're not a picker, that they can be picking you. Now, one of the issues, so just as a disclaimer here, in spite of the fact that I do work for First Canada, I actually do have a team this year. So the team that I'm lead mentor of a couple of teams, but one that I've worked most with is Team 7329, which is the Afghan Dreamers team that is working out of Oakville and is being supported by Team 771 and Team 1360 and Team 1241 and 1285. I'm not going to explain how this happened, but just that it did. And in their case, they have 6 or 8. They have 6 students right now. They're going to have 2 more girls arriving from Afghanistan shortly to work with them. Well, a drive team is 5 students. Someone's in the pits to talk to judges. That doesn't really leave anybody to scout. Now, their robot's good. They have a very good driver. I've got to say that the young lady that drives for this team is very, very good. But there is a chance that they could pick at an event. They get a little bit of luck and some good alliances. So what are they going to do? Well, they've already made arrangements with a couple of other teams that are going to be at their events to help them with their scouting, to share information. So if you're a team out there that's small in number, small in size, you might want to consider doing that. If it's something that you don't know how to do, talk to another team, talk to a veteran team, and ask them, can they work with your students as well? Can they share some information? And you'd be surprised how many teams are willing to do that. But scouting is important. You just don't want to be that team that has to pick somebody and picks a team that's not even at the event or has already been picked, which happens all the time. So don't be that team. Any other tips that you have, Monique, that would benefit some first or second year teams?
I think it's important just to have fun as much as you can. Let the kids have fun. Make sure that they keep their positive attitude, and don't let anything get them down. And also, we run through the gracious professionalism. I think that's something that's and grooming. Pit grooming is another thing that we like to add to our gracious professionalism checklist. I won't get into it more than that, but very important in the pits because you're working in close proximity. So when you're making friends, we go through all that with our team before we get there.
And for those of you that
I don't know if you want to elaborate.
Just about the gracious professionalism. So, for example, teams are eager to help because they might be playing with you as much as they might be playing against you. That's one of the reasons why they help. There are teams whose whole goal is to help other teams. So, for example, Team 4001, which is a team that I started back many years ago, they just want to work with rookies. They've been a very good team for a few years, and their goal is to help rookies. So they have kits that they've taken to Gravenhurst and Alliston to work with rookie teams there. They've hosted rookie teams at their school. So yeah, they all help you. Other teams are just as eager to help. And just keep in mind that I guess one of the points I would make about the gracious professionalism is, yes, it applies to other teams, but it also applies to your team. Value the people that you have on your team. You don't know when it's going to be that person has the great idea or the key point or remember something that everybody else forgot. And the same thing applies to all the volunteers. First doesn't work without all the volunteers that are there who pay their own way to events and put in all those hours so that the events that we have are spectacular events to go to. If you can, and you will have that opportunity, thank the referees and thank the cuers and thank the judges when they come by, and thank the people that do the field reset, all the jobs that need to get done that are done by volunteers. So Gracious Professionalism works on all sorts of levels.
Yeah, and talk to the judges. Have your kids talk to the judges and ask them questions. Make sure they understand it's not just about themselves and saying what they do, but also getting to know the judges on a personal level is important. Making connections.
Yeah, so making connections and networking is one of the key things in FIRST, I would say. One of the things that I always said to my team was that it's okay if I know you and the other lead mentor knows you, but it's even better if Mr. Bredner knows you because you're volunteering, and Mr. Hobbins knows you, and all these people in FIRST know you, because they're the ones that can help you find a co-op placement. They're the ones that can maybe tip you off to a great job opportunity that's coming up. So, but if the only person that knows you is your coach, that's just not enough. So volunteering is a great thing. Paying back, as you see, a lot of the volunteers is what they're doing. They don't have time to maybe coach a team or mentor a team, but they want to be involved. They just can't help themselves anymore. And hopefully everybody that's listening will be exactly like that when they're a little older and have the opportunity to volunteer. Any last words there, Monique, before we close off for the evening?
I think you have covered it.
Well, again, I would tell you good luck. Good luck, Monique. I'll see you. I'll be in Georgian. If people have been listening to these and they don't know who I am, when you go to the events and you go to the swag booth, that's me. I'm selling all that safety glasses and hoodies and T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. So that's me. So that's what people think I do. I do other things, but that's pretty much what I'm known for when you see me. So come by and say hello. If you're at the event that I'm at, which is Georgian, and you say, I'd like to be on that webinar one day, let me know. We'd be happy to have you. If you're going to Durham College, that's a great event. I've usually done that one every year. It's a fantastic event. And one of my former students is going to be doing the swag there. So he's volunteering and has actually now does a lot of the webpage stuff for First Canada as well. So say hi to Jan for me and enjoy your week. And hopefully your team is going to represent themselves and you in your school or your community very well. So again, the webinar has been recorded. It'll be posted tonight to the First Canada YouTube channel. If you have any questions, if you do have a desire to be on next week's event, you can contact me at this email address. And again, thank you, Monique. Good luck, Team 6131. Bonne chance. We'll see you, I guess, in a couple of days.
See you Friday. Yeah.
All right. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.